Alright guys, so in this video we're going to talk about the top 10 tower teams cookie cutter edition. Cookie cutter, I mean teams like Symbiotes, Astonishing X-Men, Infinity Watch, teams that are, a full 5-man. There are going to be some exceptions. We're going to talk Eternals as a cookie cutter team with Emma as the third. So leaves 2 spots open. Obviously that's floater. Then we have New Warriors, there's 2 spots there as well. X Factor has 1 spot, so on and so forth. You get the picture. So, the reason I wanted to make this video is because we got this in the last blog post. Not the one that happened Friday, but before that. Avengers Tower events will likely run again in 5 to 6 weeks. That's going to give us about 3 to 4 weeks now. So about a month. So enough time to at least prep a couple teams, if you have some, that are on the cusp of being really useful in these later towers. So that's what we're going to get into today. And of course, we're going to start by looking at the criteria of our teams that we're going to be ranking. So we're going to rank based on the higher floor potential, value outside of tower, because of course we're not sure if the rewards for this tower are going to be any different than the rewards for last tower, which weren't quite so hot. Then we're going to talk about character farmability, because if I'm going to recommend you build a team, they got to be farmable. Then the average player pre-build, what that is in relation to is like a team that the average player already has built. So when you think Black Order, the average player does kind of already have them built from their days in the arena meta. So there you go, and let's go ahead and jump into teams 1 and 2. Alright guys, I decided to throw this disclaimer in before we get into the teams because I want to make sure that you do not invest in these teams if you're not already set on your arena and your raid team. There's going to be some overlap on these teams. For those, if you don't have the maxed out level 85 gear tier 15 already, go ahead and do that, because that is something that is going to help secure your resources wins in raids and arena. So you want to make sure that those teams are maxed before you work on anything else. So don't be silly, don't be like me, don't max your Ravagers out, max out your Secret Avengers, max out your Web Warriors, max out whoever you need to max out for your resource gaining modes. The rewards for tower mode were not superb in the first iteration. I expect them to be a bit better this time, but not worth you jeopardizing your raids and your arena. Let's get back to the program. Alright guys, so ranks 1 and 2 are actually a dead tie between Eternals and Infinity Watch. We'll get into the reasons why. We'll start with the Eternals nonetheless though. So, as far as our 4 criteria go, tower potential, they can beat every single team that we can come across, except for like the last tower, the last floor rather, they'll need some help. Value outside the tower, well, it goes without saying, they're the arena team, they're the Mystic Raid team, they're an amazing war team. They're the it team right now. Character farmability, this is where they fall flat. Emma and the Eternals, not farmable. Milestone 2 Orb is not considered farmable. At least Emma's an older character, so some of the old dogs are going to have them have her built up enough already anyway. And obviously, if you're in the end game, you have these characters from their release. I believe Cersei was campaign, and Icarus had that actual generous store where you're able to spam by his shards. So less people were able to get some pretty good stars on them. And if you did get the stars, obviously you built them up for that arena, for that raid, for the war. So they kind of fit the criteria there. Let's talk about how high to build each character and what type of teams they counter. Well, for the Eternals and Emma, I'm going to say for the Eternals, max them out. Level 85, gear tier 15. And that's going to be a trend here. We are talking about floors 65 to like 74. So you're going to hear me recommending a lot levels 80, gear tier 15, or 80, gear tier 14. It is what it is. This is talking about the highest towers. I will mention some certain characters that'll give you the most bang for your buck. So, the Eternals, level 85, gear tier 15. Emma, level 80, gear tier 14 is fine. And you're going to want her at least to have ISO level 5 green skirmisher, so that she's landing that slow. Very important. And what type of teams do they counter? Well, you're looking at right here. Mirror matches with enemy Eternal teams. Obviously, the 2 that you sub in should help counter whatever the 2 that the enemy has subbed in. And that's going to be the Eternals' main focus, because they did flood the floors with Eternal teams. That brings us to Infinity Watch. And because Eternals are locked up dealing with a mirror match, that opens up Infinity Watch to either deal with an Infinity Watch mirror match of their own, or to be the master key to these difficult teams. So you see, this is floor 72, which is actually 1 higher than the floor you just saw my Eternals be. This is a pretty difficult team with the double Omega Reds. We could have used our New Warriors and got through it with some luck from RNG. But if we don't want to rely on that, the Infinity Watch kind of slots in as that master key. So their tower potential is through the roof. Value outside. Well, they still are valuable in the arena. There's certain Eternal comps that Infinity Watch you can just throw at, hit auto, and walk away. And your Infinity Watch will get you the win in arena, get your cores, go have a good day. They're not useful in raid, so that's a ding on them. And they're still probably this either Apex war team or the second best war team. Offense, I mean. So they do have some value outside of the tower mode still. Character farmability, this is where they actually pull ahead of the Eternals. They're all farmable with the exception of Moondragon, who I think is going to be around the corner. So if you don't already have them 7 stars, it's going to be easier to get them, especially with the old characters in Gamora and Nebula. And the average player pre-build, I'm going to assume that actually people have a bigger Infinity Watch than Eternals right now. Infinity Watch were the IT team for about 8 months before Eternals came out in October. So they hit a lot of criteria there. Now, let's talk about how big you want to build these players and what type of teams they counter. Well, we already kind of got into the type of teams they counter, which is going to be the master key for problematic teams. When I think problematic teams, I think those double Zemos with the X-23, that's a good Infinity Watch team, or these guys right here. Now, how big do you want your characters? There's 3 characters in here you're going to want max. Your Gamora, your Phyla-Vell, and your Adam Warlock. Your Moondragon and your Nebula, you do need them to survive, especially your Nebula, to get her passive going. So, you're going to want them level 80 gear tier 14. Or level 85 gear tier 14. They don't need to be gear tier 50. Yeah, I see Infinity Watch is kind of able to have a little bit of the hybrid experience that Eternals can get, which does elevate them a little bit higher as well. Like, you could sub out Moondragon and put Lady Deathstrike in for a quicker turn meter rewind. There is the possibility there. But anyway, let's get on to the next teams. Alright guys, coming in at number 3, we got Secret Avengers with Kestrel, starring Kestrel. Not necessarily Fury as the 5th, but with Kestrel in there for sure. Let's back that up just a second here. And let's look at this team that we're going to be using them against. So, obviously, Phoenix, summons, Kestrel, passive. That all checks out, right? And that is a common theme we saw in the tower. We saw a lot of hard-hitting summoners. We saw some Ultrons, we saw some Phoenixes, and having a Kestrel there to counter that is super impactful. So their tower potential is really, really high. Furthermore, you got to look at the value outside. So they're a great war team, but more importantly, they are the skill raid team, right? So it's very, very impactful. They hit those 2 criteria very hard. Are they all farmable? Everybody but Kestrel is pretty much farmable. Again, Fury, he's a legendary, but you can kind of sub him in and out as you so desire. And does the average player have them built? Yes. If you're eyeing these later floors, you probably have these built. If not for Doom 2, for Doom 2.1, they were out right at the tail end of that. So they're a great team. They also unlock Omega Red, so they have value everywhere. That's why they definitely get the nod 3. I almost had them placed as 4, but I was convinced that they were definitely the top third. How high do you want them built? You want Kestrel as high as you can get her. So, you know, gear tier 15, level 85. You probably want to do the same with Captain Sam and maybe even Sharon Carter. Maria Hill and Fury, or whoever your 5th is going to be, depending on the 5th, you probably can get away with a little bit less. Probably level 80, gear tier 14, because that is the breaking point. And that's going to be a good build for them. Now, what teams are going to use them on? We already talked about that. Teams with like Phoenix and Ultron. Let's get on to Team 4. Coming in at number 4 is Weapon X. I was initially going to put them at 3rd, but they struggle in one certain area. So let's talk about tower potential. I think Weapon X has a higher potential to deal with teams in tower than Secret Avengers do. Like, even that team with Phoenix, I think Weapon X would have walked over it. So the potential is crazy. They can beat a lot of teams. They're almost on that Infinity Watch level because they do have the Lady Deathstrike Rewind, and then Sabretooth, Wolverine, Omega Red. They all have these chain attacks with ability blocks, bleeds, offense down. They have a lot of tools in their kit, and with that initial slow, even outside of war, Lady Deathstrike rewinds, and that's super valuable. So their value outside of tower mode. Obviously, they're the best war team in the game. For raid, Lady Deathstrike's really useful in tech. Omega Red can be made useful in the boss node. Other than that, not so much, which is why Secret Avengers got the nod over them. It's basically because of the value, Secret Avengers got the nod. Are they farmable? That's another thing Secret Avengers beats them at. Lady Deathstrike, Silver Samurai not farmable yet, and Omega Red only had that one unlock so far. So a lot of people don't have them yet, which leads us into the average player pre-build. I think a lot of people want to build this team, but they don't have that crown jewel of Omega Red yet, so it's not quite built. Now, when you do have this team, how high do you want to build them? Well, you want to max out your Lady Deathstrike and your Omega Red. You want to do gear 15, level 85, possibly gear tier 16. They're both really good in raids and in Dark Dimension. And that leaves us with Sabretooth, Wolverine, and Silver Samurai. Sabretooth is going to be your questionable one if you want to max him out with Lady Deathstrike Omega Red. Now, there's going to be other reasons to do that besides Tower Mode, especially the war match with Heroes for Hire. Silver Samurai and Wolverine, I don't think you want to put that much into them. Silver Samurai does have his uses with his ultimate doing a permanent kill. That was something people were able to utilize to beat floor 75 with this team. So maybe Silver Samurai you want to get to level 85, but probably leave him at gear tier 14. Then you have Wolverine. Wolverine is the most replaceable member on this team, and when we do need to beef up this team for the later floors, he is the one that gets subbed out. So, for him, level 80, gear tier 14, because he is a new character with that rework, and that's where all their stats are hidden, is in that gear tier 14. So yeah, Weapon X, number 4. And then we got New Warriors coming in at number 5. We're talking the 3-piece, and I am going to, officially, I'm making them a cookie cutter team. And they're going to be with a spread and a speed, and that is, of course, our evil Asgardians in Hela and Loki. Loki makes Cloak go faster and Hela go faster. Cloak going before Deathpool is very important, so that she can spread on turn 1 if that's what you need to do. So, their tower potential. This is floor 74 that I'm about to show you I use them on. What more can you say? They beat the hardest floor that didn't require hybrids. The value outside of the tower, obviously those New Warriors are very good in the Mystics raid section. I'm not going to say they are the key. I think Eternals with Deathpool's passive are the key there. But they certainly don't hurt. They make it a lot easier. They probably make it auto-playable. So they're definitely valuable there. They're also a great war team. They do have value outside of tower, for sure. Are they farmable? This is where they do get hit pretty hard. So, like Kestrel, who is a premium, Deathpool is also a premium, so it's hard to say, like, go build up this character, because if you only have 4 yellow stars, how can you fill any red stars you might have, or how do you just, get that stat bonuses they need from that 6th and 7th yellow star? That's hard. And then does the average player have them pre-built? Again, I'm basically looking at players who are capable of going from 60 to 75 at what the old tower was. Now, I know the floors aren't going to be the same, but that's a different point. The average player, do you have these guys built? They were the answer to the Mystic raid section before Eternals were released. Eternals made it trivial. These guys made it possible. So I do think a lot of people have them built. That works in their favor. So that's another reason why they're going to be high on this list at number 5. So how high do you want these guys built? Well, right off the bat, let's say Loki is going to be the exception to the rule where he's just a kid. He is a walking passive. You can bring him like I did here. I think he's level 70, gear tier 12. You don't need to put any orange on him. I wouldn't worry about that. If you want him to survive, to put them in stealth, maybe you can bring him up to level 85, but I wouldn't worry so much about gears. The other members, your Deathpool, you're going to want her really, really big, and then your Cloak and Dagger, I think you're also going to want them really big. Those 3 are going to make this team live or die. So, I would say level 85, gear tier 15 on Deathpool, gear tier 14 at least on Cloak and Dagger. And I will also say Cloak is a great Dark Dimension character. That leaves us with Hela. Hela does a lot of damage. I know she doesn't have that damage stat post Silver Surfer, but she does have a lot of damage. And that ultimate, I think it gets a bunch of extra focus, maybe 3,000. So she's going to land her things, which is very important. I would suggest level 85, gear tier 14 on Hela. She's gonna hit really, really hard for you. Coming in at number 6, we got the Astonishing X-Men. Yes, they're going to be very, very useful against some of our teams, and we're going to jump into this right now. So, tower performance. They're going to be very good in tower because tower was flooded with summoned teams such as like Multiple Man, Hela, Ultrons, Dooms. There was a bunch of teams that had summons, and it seems like they throw a bunch in there so that you have to use your Astonishing X-Men, you have to use your Symbiotes, and then you got to find a different, more creative solution for the rest. So I do think they're going to remain very viable. We're going to see summoners in the next iteration of Tower as well. Useful outside of Tower, I think that goes without saying. The Astonishing X-Men are obviously your mutant raid team. They're very, very good. They have a little bit of a timeout issue, so I'm not sure if they're going to remain the mutant raid team for too much longer, but that remains to be seen. And obviously, they're a good war offense and defensive team. They're all farmable. Jubilee's obviously a legendary. You're going to have to farm your Pym Tech for that. And if you'll have them pre-built, it's been about a year since they've been released, so I have to assume that if you're doing the Doom raids, you're eyeing these higher floors, you do have your Astonishing X-Men built at least to like the near top degree. And let's talk about who we're going to build to what, and we'll do that while we watch the footage. Bishop and Jubilee, you're going to want maxed out. Gear tier 15, level 85 for sure, they're the damage. Then we're going to have Beast, Iceman, probably level 85 as well, but you get away with gear tier 14 on them. And then here's the elephant in the room, Kitty. Where's my Kitty? Well, you see, I'm using Zemo, and the reason I want to use Zemo is kind of as a cheap way to advertise the next video, which is going to be the plug-and-play characters. They're going to accelerate our cookie cutter teams in the later floors. So in the later floors from like 65 to 75, it was hybrid heaven. Only a rare few teams like Weapon X and Infinity Watch as straight cookie cutter teams were able to hang in those later floors. I mean, Eternals did, if used by my definition, with it's just Eternals Emma, and you get to choose to. Obviously, the New Warrior team did as well. That's not strictly a cookie cutter team, because we are putting Hela and Loki on the team, though we are keeping them there permanently. But you get what I'm saying. So, as far as Kitty goes, Kitty will be the most replaceable member on this team. Probably you just want her able to survive. Probably level 75, gear tier 14, just enough so that she's able to kill dupes, kill Gregs on the lower level floors, and then you will sub her out. Okay, what teams are we going to use them against? Well, you just saw it here, summoner teams. That's going to include your multiple men, your Hellas, maybe even some Ultrons, maybe some Doctor Dooms, Maria Hill, Fury, those kind of people. But probably, yeah, you probably want to stay away from Dooms as much as possible, because you're going to want someone with an ability block. Now, this team that I see right in front of me with a Zemo, that could work, but we'll probably want to use Zemo somewhere else. Next on our list is Uncanny. Yes, this new team is actually going to make this list for a couple reasons, and we'll get into it. Their tower ability, they're very, very good in tower if built up to the right level. Now, there's a reason they're number 7, and that comes down to their use outside of the tower. This is a war offense and defensive team strictly. I think that goes without saying. At super high levels, they're going to be really good. Now, you'll see this isn't old tower footage. This is actually war practice footage. And the reason I'm showing war practice footage and not tower footage is because I actually failed this matchup. And so I wanted to practice with it because it took me, I think it took me 3 tries to beat this team, and I ended up just using Eternals on it, which is a no-no, right? We want to save our Eternals for mirror matches as much as possible. So I wanted to practice, I wanted to see what teams could beat this. My Uncanny team, when played properly, did walk over this team. So their tower ability is up there. And we talked about their use, they're just war offensive defensive team. Character farm, they're all farmable with the exception of Magic. Will you have this team pre-built? This is a pretty old team, though it was a war team at that time as well. So I'm not sure people are going to have this team built up to the kind of levels you need them to hang in at the higher levels of tower, which is pretty high. The thing with Magic is she's a kit-based character to an extent. If you have her built super high, she's actually a very good damage character too. But you can get away with kind of looking at her as a kit character for the time being, and just look at this Uncanny team for what it is. It is a new version of Power Armor, new better version, where only 2 members need to get off, and that's Storm and Cyclops. And that's going to lead us into who are we going to build. I almost have to pause it because we're almost done already. We're going to build our Storm and Cyclops as much as possible. Gear tier 15, level 85. Phoenix, you're probably going to have her there already from Dark Dimension 4, and you're probably bringing her into Dark Dimension 5, so you might have her gear tier 16 before you know it. She's less useful on this team because mostly the enemy is going to be dead before she gets to ult anyway, but she's a good contingency plan. Now, that leaves us with Magic and Colossus. Magic is a new character. Her release method was very stingy. I think it was 150 shards maximum free to play. The good news is you only need her to survive long enough to use her special. If you have her big enough, all the better. But to make her use her special, put her as a fortifier, bring her up to level 80, gear tier 14. As soon as she hits her special, if she falls over, that's fine. And even at that level 80, gear tier 14, at the higher floors, she's probably going to fall over. With that said, be careful bringing her up against a team like the Astonishing X-Men, right? Because that'll feed speed. And that leaves just Colossus left, and he's actually going to get the same kind of treatment as Magic. I only need him to survive long enough that Storm's going to use her ultimate, then Cyclops pretty much goes right after that, and then Phoenix will do a cleanup. So for Colossus, level 75, gear tier 14 as well. And let's finish off this matchup. There we go. Alright, so coming in at number 8, we got Black Order, and I know you're wondering how can Uncanny beat Black Order. That simply comes down to the fact that Black Order is on their way out, and Uncanny just came in, so they're going to be having some better use in the future. I'm sure Scopely has it mapped out like that. That's the way I feel, and I also feel that at all things being equal, if my Uncanny was as big as my Black Order, I could get just as much tower potential out of them. But let's talk Black Order. Black Order's tower potential is actually through the roof when you hit certain thresholds. Especially they can take care of that mirror matchup. We saw a lot of Black Orders in there. And you'll see even this team right here on floor 70. So past that floor 65 threshold I've been talking about, floor 70, they're able to get this done. Now this was very close and very risky, but it did get it done. So their tower potential is there. Now value outside of tower, war offense and defense. That's all it is. They're not useful in arena anymore. You don't use any of them in raid. You know, Thanos and Mod aren't on that Mystic team. That's it. War offense and defense. Are they farmable? Kind of. Ebony Maw is that legendary of a legendary. Newer players like new Krakens who've kind of built themselves up where they're actually able to compete in tower might have skipped Ebony Maw because they don't want to do the Black Bolt to get Ebony Maw. And that's understandable because Inhumans don't make this list for a reason. Will Black Bolt make the plug and play list? We'll see. And does the average player have them built? If you're doing these later floors, I just mentioned new Krakens, they're the exception to this. If you're doing these later floors, you've probably been around when the arena meta was Black Order, so you will have them built up. So I think that's a good reason to at least include them on this list at number 8. So how high and who do you want to build? Well, obviously we want our Thanos maxed out. We want him at gear tier 15, level 85, and that's probably the same for Kull. Now, Proxima and Ebony, we probably want gear tier 14, but level 85, so they get that extra damage. And Ebony Maw, yeah, probably the same as Proxima and Corvus. However, Ebony Maw does have that asterisk where, are you bringing him into Dark Dimension 5? He is obviously a great legendary character, so if you're going to bring him to level 85, gear tier 16, that actually raises the value of this team because you've already done one of the pieces. Now, an issue with the Black Order that Uncanny doesn't have, another reason why they place lower, is there's no substitutions for Black Order. I can't go ahead and take out Proxima and shove in Zemo to get past some kind of pre-taunting tank. So they're a static team, they have to have those 5 members. So if you know, they throw a lot of these new characters at us with some tricky mechanics, Black Order is what they are, and they can't get over any of these extra gimmicks. Coming to number 9, we got these Symbiotes. Now, Symbiotes are basically a watered-down version of what the Astonishing X-Men can do in tower mode. So they see a summoner like Hela, like Multiple Man, Ultron to a certain extent, Fury, Maria. Obviously, they're great for that too. Sorry about the memes. This was pulled off the War of the Tower. Whatever, they're off my Tower YouTube videos. But I digress. So the tower potential is there for these summoner teams, and I had to include them even though we already have a summoner killing team because of the sheer amount of summoners we saw on the last tower. I think that is going to be something that we see again because they know you have a couple answers to summoners. They want to exhaust those answers and make you kind of deal with a different summoner a different way. Now, value outside. They kind of just got shoved out of the game, didn't they? In that bio raid area. So, are they a good war offense or defensive team? Not really. No, not quite. So I don't think they have value anywhere else. But are they farmable? Well, they're all farmable now. You know, Anti-Venom is now in the war store. And does the average player have them built? This is where they kind of jump back up and do make it on this list. So they can take care of summoner teams. And the normal players who have been playing for a while will have this team built because they were so useful for, what, a year and a half? They were the best team at the tail end of Ultimate 7. Then they had their time in Doom 1. Well, they kind of weren't the best, but they were the team that everyone built. And then in Doom 2, they actually had a resurgence. They were able to get through it, just not quickly enough. So, how high do you want them build, and who do you want to build? Scream, Anti-Venom, Symbiote Spider-Man. If you want to use this team on the higher floors, you want them max level 85, gear tier 15. Carnage, he's a passive, probably level 80, gear tier 14. And Venom, I'm tempted to go even less. So I've kind of used that as a baseline for these top levels, is that gear tier 14, level 80. Venom is going to be your first subbed out. So this team that you just saw me beat was actually a risk. Had Fury given the energy to Kestrel, Kestrel would have went first and could have wrecked somebody. So Venom is going to be the first person you kick off this team, probably for either a Drax, just to make sure that he's the one that dies, or maybe a Cable to go faster, and Emma is kind of a speed character. Red Guardian, you get what I'm trying to put down. So for Venom, level 75. Gear tier 14, because you still want to hit those stat marks, and that'll help you be It'll help him stay relevant until like the floor 65 mark. So yeah. Now here's the team I almost didn't put on the list. We're talking Heroes for Hire. I don't have any footage of Heroes for Hire kicking butt. But that Uncanny matchup I showed you against the Astonishing with the Inhumans, I got lots and lots and lots and lots of people telling me that they used their Heroes for Hire team to beat them. They also told me they were able to utilize their Heroes for Hire against other very high-level teams. So the tower potential does seem to be there. Value outside, they're a very, very good war defensive team, even with Weapon X hard countering them. There is, of course, still a couple issues and hiccups. They bridge if Shang-Chi and Misty Knight both get the stealth. That can cause problems. Obviously, reactor security can kind of make things a little iffy. So there is a room where Heroes for Hire can actually beat a lot of the Apex War offense teams still. And this leads to another thing, looking a little bit further ahead into the game. Grand Tournament is apparently coming down the pipeline, and I have to assume that the War defensive teams are going to get shoehorned in to Grand Tournament defensive teams, because if not, then there's going to be absolutely no teams that hold on Grand Tournament, and it's just going to be a bloodbath, a race. I don't think they want that, so I do think we're going to see War defensive teams make their way in there, and that includes Young Avengers, for the record. Are they farmable? Yes. The Heroes for Hire are super farmable. They've been farmable for a very, very, very long time. Not for a long time, sorry. They're very easily farmable. In the Blitz store, and there's 2 of them in the Blitz store, or 3 of them in the Blitz store. Luke Cage, Shang-Chi, and now Misty Knight. Then you have Colleen in the Arena store, and Iron Fist on a node. So a very early node. So they're very easily farmable. Does the average player have them pre-built? This is why they're actually at number 10 and not at number 7. Because the people who told me they reuse it, I trust them. And I also saw how high they got. So I know that their strategies were sound. Lots of people at the super higher echelons have 1 million powered Heroes for Hire. Because like I said, they can still work on war defense, even with Weapon X in the game. I don't. I have them at 550k or so. So the idea of bringing this team super high up to make value for them in tower when they're a war defensive team, possibly a Grand Tournament team, that's a tall task, which is why they only get the rank number 10. Now I do think they are higher than our notable mentions, which we're going to get to right now. Oh wait, before that, for the who do you want to build and how high? You want your Shang-Chi or Colleen maxed out level 85 gear tier 15. The other 3 level 80 gear tier 14. Now let's get on to those honorable mentions. Okay, so these are our honorable mentions. We have at 11 X Factor. X Factor is a very interesting team. They're that 4-piece with the Dad Bros, Polaris, and Multiple Man. You'd probably slide in either Zemo, X-23, Hawkeye, somebody fast to get them out the gate. Somebody who's going to benefit from crits. I'm not going to go too much into the criteria or who to build and what teams they counter, because then the video will run too long. Then we have Web Warriors. Now, Web Warriors I will mention a little bit more in detail. I was able to utilize my Web Warriors very well, but the thing is, they are a roll of the dice. They are like opening up red stars in the higher tower levels. It all comes down to the dodging, and I would never want to recommend somebody builds up a team to the max when this team already functions at lower levels in their where they shine, right? In Bio Raid, they get by at 600k. So I don't want to say, hey, bring your Web Warriors up to 900k for tower mode. That would be silly. So although Web Warriors are a great new team, I can't include them on this list. Maybe a couple of members will make it into the plug and play. We'll see. Next was Shadowlands. Shadowlands is actually still very fast, even outside of war, which gives them an edge on some of the teams. I couldn't include them on this list, though, just because their value outside and how many people actually have them already pre-built to really high levels for war isn't quite there. So that's why they didn't make the list. Ravagers. There's a big question mark on Ravagers. The full Ravager team right now, I'm very questionable about. I think I actually prefer the hybrid team that I have out on YouTube. And I think I might actually stop building some Ravagers and just settle with that. We'll see. No, that's not true. I'm gonna build them up so we can see what they can do. And lastly, Brotherhood. Brotherhood could not make this list just because of stats. Mechanically, Brotherhood is such an amazing, interesting team with the buff clear from Toad and then the Magneto group and Blind and then Pyro and Juggernaut and Blob just doing huge amounts of AoE, but the damage isn't there. And that's the problem, so they could not make this list. Alright guys, I hope you liked this video. I hope you found it a little bit informative heading into this next tower. Again, heed that disclaimer that I showed before we started getting into the teams. Just know that the rewards compared to the amount of resources you'd have to put in to excel at those higher floors with these teams doesn't mesh. The rewards were not worth it. So, if you're in a position where you're looking for something to build, your raid and your arena teams are done, these are some great options. They're obviously going to double up as some war teams. As you saw, like every team I mentioned was a war team in one way, shape, or form. I mean, Symbiotes, but it is what it is. But if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one, where we're going to be talking about the top 10 plug-and-play characters that are going to fix some of the holes that these teams have at the super high levels. And we might actually just throw in a full hybrid team in there in the mix. You're going to have to come check it out, though, to see what I'm talking about. Bye for now.